Oh, you just want to see me fail more and more. That's sadomasochism. Yeah, all right, so thanks everybody for coming, and yeah, I guess, what, am I in the shot and all that?
Yeah, you're good, buddy.
We're sounding really good. Well, yeah, I'd like to tell you guys, the most disappointing thing in my life is not being disabled, it's not being poor, it's not even being lonely. It's every single solitary time I've bitten into a chocolate chip cookie and it turned out to be raisin. Ugh. Oh, fuck. You know what I'd like to do with them raisin cookies besides throw them into the Earth's orbit? I'd like to take them down to one of them comic book conventions. See those comic book cats? Some of them have some pretty cool costumes, right? But I never looked at one of them nerds and was like, oh my god, that has to be the real Wolverine. That adamantium's so authentic. You ain't fooling nobody, comic book guy, no. But if I take them raisin cookies down there, I fool everybody till they take the first bite. So for me, raisins cosplaying chocolate chips is the most disgusting yet accurate cosplay of all time. I thought it was funny too, thanks. You know, when I was younger, I used to do therapeutic horseback ride at the Bengal Lancers. Imagine that. Take a bunch of little disabled kids, put them on top of 700-pound live animals. It's got to be safe, right? Therapeutic horseback riding, I'm still in therapy for that shit today. Yeah, I got a friend, speaking of Bengal Lancers, got a lifelong background in horses. They want to get a job at Bengal Lancers, shoveling out the stables. Bengal Lancers said, oh, no, you got to volunteer first. Man, what is the world coming to? I know it's hard time, but are you telling me you got to pay your dues shoveling shit for free to earn the right to shovel shit for minimum wage? Fucking hell, man. Like, nobody wants, like, unless that's your kink or something, nobody sets out their lifelong dream and ambition to be a shit shoveler. Fuck, people would probably rather do anything else. I'd rather eat a batch of raisin cookies. Can't shovel out a stable, but it's the point that counts, I guess. Yeah, speaking of shit, I was at the cafe that Antonio frequents there last week, and they had, and I might have even mentioned this at the time, they had some Trump toilet paper. But that wasn't even the funny part. No, see, the toilet paper wasn't even open, and there was already a brown stain on the package. Even the toilet paper manufacturers can't hide how they feel about Trump. You know what he's going to do in response to that? He's going to put a tariff on pooping. You know what we do? Good thinking Canadians, good thinking Mexicans, go over from the Canadian side, go over from Canada's side, go over from Mexico's side, make sure you cross that border and take a big old dump on American soil. Because that's what we think of you and your terrorist Donnie dipshit. Fuck you. Anyway, believe it or not though, I think he's like this idiot genius, you know? Every move he does is kind of like the wrong move, but the one that struck me as the absolute funniest is he's trying to shut down the Department of Education. And in doing so, he's put in charge ex-wife of ex-WWF boss Vince McMahon, Linda McMahon. He said, Linda, I want you to put yourself out of a job. Yeah. Who do you hire a job to fire themselves? Like, right? But anyway, how are you going to put a wrestling mogul in charge of the Department of Education? Imagine how that works out. Boys and girls, there better not be any remainders in your long division. You're going to get hit over the head with a steel folding chair. Fuck me. This is why I think it's like one of these idiot genius moves, though, right? Because I think he plans on being around for a while. So you shut down the Department of Education, you get a whole generation of people who can't read, then they'll never be able to figure out how to vote him out. Too sad to laugh at, I know. Speaking of education, you gotta watch what the college professors are teaching the young folks these days. I heard of a beat generation where the professor said Taylor Swift is a beatnik. No. Exactly. No, that is not correct. As far as I know, the Beat Generation ran from the late 1940s to the early 60s ballpark, right? I don't even know if Taylor Swift's parents were born in the Beat Generation. No, like your grandmother might have been a beatnik, right? But somehow I don't think that holds the same cachet with college kids, right? Like, how many college kids you see running around campus going, oh man, if only I could be as cool as grandma. Not too many, right? And there's another problem with this too. The beatniks were incredibly countercultural. Taylor Swift is the mainstream, right? You could make an argument. You could say Taylor Swift is the modern day Elvis or the Beatles, right? But beatnik, that's as ridiculous as saying Mr. Dressup was the Black Panther. Would have been cool as shit, right? But I never seen him put on army fatigues, raise his fist in the air, and yell Black Power. Loved it. There'll be no revolution from the tickle trunk today, boys and girls. Speaking of weird revolutionary things, believe it or not, I am a champion bowler. This happened a couple years ago. That shows you how lazy I am, but right in bits. Me and my cousin Double O went down bowling with his partner and my ex, and I smoked them all. I will say I did have the gutter blockers up, but everybody else had that advantage too. It wasn't just me, right? So picture this. Hadn't done this in years, right? Crutch on one arm, ball in the other, could barely balance, barely stand, barely throw the ball, and I smoked them all. And I was the only one who was drunk. So let me put it this way. If a drunk, disabled man who can barely do a physical activity beats you by a very wide margin with that physical activity, you are doing life wrong. See a doctor, get some pills. If you're already on some pills, stop immediately because they're not working out for you. Have you even exercised in the last 12 years? I think you better check your pulse. You might not be technically alive. Pardon me, I have to take a drink. I'm very dry mouth.
Straight vodka in that.
Don't tell my secret, Save. I'm on antabuse too, so that what happens next. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but yeah. So bowling. That was crazy, and I did beat them all. It was nuts. It was fucking nuts. I just can't quite remember where I was. Oh, yes, I know. This is kind of ridiculous. So forgive me if this doesn't work, but I'm gonna try. Always used to bother me that when people used to, and it's a bit archaic, right? Like you don't hear too much anymore, but I think unfortunately chauvinism is alive and well, right? So I know I heard growing up from some men, oh, you can never put a woman in power because imagine what she might do on her period. Ugh. Yeah, well, men in power have been killed. Like I never met a woman who killed anybody while on their period. Probably haven't, right? But I never met. Men in power have been killing people for millions of years. Clearly, periods are the issue. Let me put it this way: men are fucking up so bad that if we could somehow isolate a period so that it was its own autonomous entity, I would vote for that period before I vote for a man. Imagine that. People paint the signs red, hold them up big letters, right? Take the man note of menstruation. I'd do it. Another thing that never really used to make sense to me, and I know they had to fight hard for it, and unfortunately it's still legal, and I'm always scared it's gonna get clawed back, but that's ban gay marriage. We gotta ban gay marriage, right? Why? Like, just because it's a thing, like, you don't have to get gay married because it's something you can do, right? But I was thinking about this, right? And I thought real hard, and I was like, what? Gay sex is really the only safe sex you can have. Yeah, you can still catch plenty of diseases, sure, but you ain't gonna have to be responsible for another life for a whole 18 years. Nobody believes me on that? No? You won't. And fuck, the way kids are maturing these days and the housing market, fuck 18 years, you're gonna have to be responsible for that kid for the rest of your natural life.
Yeah.
So you tell me, what's worse? A little bit of gay sex or being responsible for someone you never wanted in the first place for the rest of your life? Wouldn't you rather have gay sex too? Grease me up, babe. I don't want to throw my life away. Speaking of throwing my life away, I've had a lot of troubles dating. It could be because I tell women that I'd rather have gay sex than have a baby. Or it could be that I'm a terrible person. I don't know. Right? But the thing that people always said that used to perplex the fuck out of me is say, Josh, oh, you got to move to a bigger city. Move to a bigger city. Well, as far as I know, we just got 50,000 people in the last year, right? And as far as I know, Nova Scotia's ballpark population is 1 million people. So you're telling me that I'm so unique and or unbearable that 1 million people is too small of a dating pool? Oh, that must be some hard case, man. Jesus. But you know what? I got the solution. I finally figured it out. I know what I'm going to do. You know where I'm going to start picking up people? In the hospital. That's where everybody's at anyway. Right? That's where everybody's at. And look, man, I hope your health ain't serious, because we can get married and have those children I don't want before a doctor will ever fucking see you. I like sick people, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. You see, a lot of stupid fucking shit on Facebook, stupid dumb posts, and
I believe it.
You believe it? You posted it. I did too. Yeah, and so this person though, like my friend shared, somebody lost their dog, and right away it says, "Do not post sightings of the dog. They will be deleted immediately." I'm like, well, you just lost your dog, so you don't want people to post when and where they saw it? That's very responsible, right? But then I was like thinking, okay, well maybe they're private people or something, right? But then in big bold letters it says, "Do not approach the dog. It is too skittish." So, like, what are you supposed to do if you see this fucking dog? Turn the corner and hide? If I can put on a disguise and roll up your tinted windows and hope the dog doesn't see you? And what the fuck's the owner? Like, what are you gonna speed dial the owner? What are they gonna do? Come down with fucking a bunch of tranquilizer darts and a big giant net? Your dog ran away. It ain't gonna sit there patiently till you come and get it. Morons. I can imagine how this unfolded, right? Oh, Betty, call Muffins over. Okay, Muffins, come here, girl. Oh, geez, Jim, she's getting kind of far away. Think I should go get her? Oh, no, Betty, don't do that. She's too skittish. She might run away. Oh, but Jim, Jim, I can't see her. Muffins, come here, girl. Muffins, where could you be? Oh, where could you be, Muffins? I can't see you. Muffins, come back, please. Oh, geez, Betty, we're going to have to make our Facebook post again. That's the 6th dog we've lost this year. Where's my liquor? I got one more closing joke.
Other side.
Yeah,
Oh.
one in the glass. I'm not gonna lose my place now because I know what the last joke is. So hopefully I won't fuck it up, but I know what it is at least. I really appreciate people coming to my show. I try to make them cost effective for y'all, like $10, right? That's not a bad deal, right? And like, even if you don't like what I say, you'll never have to sit through it again until I con you to come to the next show. But even then it'll be different nonsense, right? So take me $10, right? You get a piece of abstract art, a real weird painting or something, right? Squiggles and dots. What are you gonna do with squiggles and dots? They're not gonna match the rest of your decor, unless you're on fucking peyote and everything's squiggles and dots, right? And $10 for me. Squiggles and dots might cost you thousands of dollars. And you'd never, like, how are you gonna, you're not gonna get rid of it until you find somebody that's been conned as much as by the art world as you've been. You might be stuck with that poem for the rest of your life. Like those kids I don't want, right? So, I gotta, like, what's, forgive me, I might ruin your night, but choose me over abstract art, because I'm not gonna ruin your life. And then there's the question of meaning, right? Like, I could say some ridiculous shit to you right now, right? Like, just, but you'll know what I'm saying. Here's what I come up with. Well, guys, the other day I fell off the edge. So truly, I say to you, the Earth is flat. Nonsense, right? But you know what I've said. You caught the meaning. But these squiggles and dots over here, somebody could say, oh, listen, I think this art represents war. Someone else said, oh, no. These squiggles and dots represent peace. Meanwhile, I think those squiggles and dots represent fucking squiggles and dots. And it's really only the very best bullshitter that can convince you what they really mean, right? So, if you ask me, I think those squiggles and dots represent my deep and profound hatred for raisins. Yes, I got you on the very last thing. So you choose me over abstract art and raisins. I really appreciate that. I do have some poems to read, and they're a bit long form, but we've got through the stand-up stuff, so I don't have to remember anything. That was a good little set. Thank you guys for helping me out there. And I'm real happy with that. Very nice crowd. So one of the things I've found over the years when I'm doing these, I get a little bit too quick sometimes. I'm going to work on that. If I'm going too slow, that's probably actually the right speed. So this first piece, and I wrote this just the end of January, and it's something that's always kind of perplexed me, anti-immigrant sentiment, right? I don't get it. Like, I get that you like family and friends better than a stranger, like I sure do, right? Because if you don't know somebody, you don't know how much trouble they're going to be, right? So, but like, why you would like an unknown person in your own country more than an unknown person from China or wherever, I just don't understand. So, anyway, this is my wrestling with that, and it's called There's No Such Thing as a Foreign Menace. Long ago, I can see the need to protect your home or your town from invading marauders who might slit your throat and do worse to the people you love in order to take all you have. I suffer no illusions about the most vile aspects of human nature. Humanity has a rotten history of conquest and plunder. It persists today, festers on as rotten as ever. If you have never suffered from this disease, then you are probably as fortunate as I am to live in a place ruled by the winners, whose power is too stable to be threatened by your protest. I have no national pride, until Trump started putting on those tariffs, I guess, but feel tremendous gratitude and relief that it is highly unlikely I shall suffer any quantifiable harm for speaking this piece. Most of the world does not have the freedom to express their malcontent without the fear of incarceration or an immediate stop to the beating of their heart. In our time, under Western democracy, I am unable to understand the idiocy of xenophobia. My grandparents have a cartoon disdain for foreigners, prevalent in regular folks from days gone by. History has not been kind to minorities. Great strides have been made, but language has probably changed more than reality. Fear and hatred toward people who look different rages on, even though most speak it less bluntly than our grandparents. And yet, there seems to be a dreadful rise in hate being shouted vociferously by those who should know better. I don't get it. I never will. I'll absolutely acquiesce to the bias of love toward my family and friends, and general indifference to a stranger. But I feel no more fondness toward an unknown Canadian than an unknown Cambodian. If anything, I am probably more sympathetic to the Cambodian, because without knowing much, they have probably had a harder life. I'm far better disposed to that Cambodian than I am to a local yokel who has denied my professional merit or stabbed me in the heart. Those who have not met me cannot have done me wrong. My only problem with immigration is when those who have the capacity to own multiple residences come from away and drive up our property values, forcing the most vulnerable to be homeless and the former middle class to erode into memory. Nearly everyone is in a constant state of worry, fearing rent eviction or the rent tripling. Homelessness is a possibility for almost anyone who isn't incredibly well off. I have no problem with someone coming over from Mexico or Syria fleeing terror and gangsters, but I'm all for thorough background checks. I wouldn't want to run into Osama bin Laden or his philosophy, sipping an Orange Julius the one time I had a lapse in good taste and decided to go to the mall. But most who come here are trying to get as far away as they can from those types of people. Canada should be a place where those who need refuge can have it. Our infrastructures are strained, but let's build more hospitals and hire more medical professionals and hold them to the highest possible standard. Everyone deserves a home, food to eat, and the best health medical science can provide. To those who question why people from more repressive places don't stay to improve them, I reply with questions of my own. Would you want to stay in a place where you couldn't go to school because you were a girl? Or face execution because the required picture of your ruler has got too dusty? Could you be that brave? I'm not sure I could look a tank in the face. Most of the time, I want to live. Just like I mentioned at the start, there is always the possibility that someone from a foreign land does the very worst to you, or someone you love. But we have plenty of killers born on our native soil. They didn't do their worst because they are from away. They did their worst because they have not learned to sublimate their worst impulses, a crime for which any human may be guilty, irrespective of their nationality. I suspect those who have experienced violence may be more apt to respond with it. But this is not absolute. If we did our best to act in peace, we may be able to one day escape the vicious cycle of retaliation. Seems a pipe dream, I know, especially under today's circumstances. But if there were no dreamers with unbridled imaginations, the world would never change. America was built on the backs of slaves and immigrants, preceded by genocidal displacement of its original people. It has always been a very perplexing contradiction. Freedom, justice, and equality, but only for some. Over time, with blood, sweat, and martyrous sacrifice, the lives of the disenfranchised have improved. But they're not what they could be. If it was freedom, justice, and equality for all, there would not be disenfranchised people. Now those poor folk who have managed to escape hell on earth risk being sent back in unprecedented numbers as a very rich man, spurred only by ignorance and hatred, holds a sword of Damocles over the lives of thousands of people without better choices. For those who think it could never happen in our own age, my youngest grandparent was born when Hitler came to power. He sent Jews to Nova Scotia, and we sent them back to him. Mass detention centers and deportations are closer to concentration camps and gas chambers than the sentiment that creates them would have anyone believe. Thanks, folks. 2 more to go on this long journey. There are also very long pieces as well, so especially the last one. How's the speed on that? Good? Like not yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, look at that. Let's kill that before I waste any of it. I just went down the wrong pipe. I wouldn't be able to talk for the rest of the show. Pantomime these last two poems for 23 minutes or whatever the fuck. This next one is kind of like about my artistic career, and I've spoken about my journey before, but never quite this way, and I'm focused here on my stand-up journey. But ultimately, it's coming to a reconciliation and acceptance of the fact that just like, instead of getting famous or rich or whatever, it just might be better for me to be, still keep doing the art, but remain unknown, as long as I get the work done, and remain unknown till I'm dead, and then see where it lands, kind of thing. So, as a result, this piece is called Under the Radar. I started this long journey nearly 20 years ago. I finally got over myself enough to speak into a microphone at a comedy show on Wednesday, May 31st, 2006. I didn't have jokes. I didn't know how to do that yet. I had a 4 or 5 minute story about a housefly named Henri, which I believe climaxed with me killing Henri as he would a housefly. You laughed better than that first audience did that night. I believe I still have it scribbled in an old book about as legible as a doctor's note. It was mildly clever, but far too upper class, and not nearly as droll as I'd hoped. I would go on to learn droll is the wrong goal for stand-up. One should aim for hilarious, settle for funny, and not be discouraged when the whole thing falls flat. It could be that you don't know what you're doing, or that there aren't enough people, or even if you do, and there are, you made a poor choice creatively. Or it could be the twin forces of discrimination and a health condition that won't allow you to network prevent you from being what you should be. So then you just can't give it your all, but you can't quite quit. So you wind up being just as bad as those crooks who put every spoke in your wheel accused you of being. 4 years in, I managed to score my first pro gigs as the lowly middle act. I kept fighting for those for the next 7 years, but haven't even tried for almost 8. What an awful rat race to have to beg to work a $200 weekend that you'll only get a few times a year. There was a time when I would try to do the free shows at least once a week to master the craft. But the disappointment of the disappointment of working for free crushed my enthusiasm so that I was actually getting worse. I am happy to report that I have unofficially quit. Those shows are too hard on my bladder and even harder on my soul. But you never know. You can catch me somewhere about once a year. I might even headline your favorite public town. You'll get the best I can do because I am no longer beaten down by the drudgery. I'm probably writing at least 500% more than when I was a regular act. I have given up on the business, but not the craft. I'll happily take paid work, but I will not beg. I'm more concerned with my legacy than I am my bank account. Rudimentary versions of these. Can we stop that noise, please? It's really distracting. Thanks. Sorry. I started to be serious as well. It's rudimentary versions of these prose poems as far back as 2011. They weren't nearly as long because I didn't sleep properly till almost a decade later. And I didn't have the focus to put words to my thoughts in such immense detail. A theater show, a podcast, and a film would follow. All proved more lucrative than my attempts at humor. But that amount is negligible because I have never made it to the poverty line. Thanks to the recent magnanimity of Jagmeet Singh, I am closer than I have ever been. My newfound wealth has not made me happier, but I am relieved to not be as completely crushed by poverty as I had been for 20 years. Now the building's shut up, building. Till fairly recently, I had great dreams of success, fame and riches the likes of which I had never seen, though I must admit my taste for wealth has never been too obscene. I merely seek to own the home where I reside and the small piece of land on which it lies. But I suppose it had better be a condo scenario if I'm to be on my own. My relationship with fame is a bit more tricky. I don't want to be famous merely for the sake of it. I have seen far too many celebrities known simply for being celebrities, and I think that is a terrible waste. I have seen many other god-awful artists somehow get over due to incredibly poor taste. If that were to happen to me, if I won notoriety for being in some hideous film or play, I would consider it a tremendous insult if I were not also known for the workings of my own imagination. God knows I've failed there plenty of times, but I'd rather be known as a bad artist with his own bad ideas than be victimized by someone else's. I would like my values to be known, but it is far more important that they be implemented than they be known as my own personal brand. It doesn't matter that a guaranteed basic income came from me. I know I'm not the first to posit it, and far from the only one who will extol its virtues. But my life would be a great success if I am able to help win the argument that makes poverty go the way of slavery. If I could somehow encourage a freedom and individuality that most people have not had the time or courage to cultivate, then I shall have won a great battle for the human race. So long as that freedom and individuality does not suppress anyone except billionaires and killers from expressing the full extent of their own. Still, my giant ego spurs me on. It is the fuel that enabled me to get started in the first place. I saw great works and they changed my life. They elevate my conscience and my consciousness. My dream is to someday have my creativity mentioned in the same breath as Dostoevsky, Van Gogh, and Nina Simone. I know this is impossible, but I'll die trying to get there. Hopefully, it takes me another 40 years. And you know, it's really better for me if conversations about the merits of my mind happen when I'm dead. I can't stand large groups. I wouldn't want to be followed around by paparazzi. I see enough unwell people in the course of my day. It is far better if I remain an unknown pauper with very strange ideas. I pose no threat to dangerous people if I hold no power. So for now, I will continue to chisel away at my legacy. I like to chiggle at my legacy too. I wonder what would happen then. My legacy wiggles for the dance. For now, I will continue to chiggle away in obscurity. Hopefully one day I shall be worthy to receive the grace to look down safely in the world without suffering and see just how close I was able to come. One more big long monster to go, really long. And I fear this may be actually upsetting because I'm tackling some very controversial subjects in this. And my point is, it's a poem about nuance, though. And my point is that, you know, they say like, there's 50 shades of gray. Well, I think there's a lot more than that. Wouldn't be infinite because we're still on the human plane and there's got to be somewhat limited possibilities, but they're a great deal more than 50, and this is a call to look at each situation individually. If you don't quite agree with me, that's fine, but realize I've thought about these for a long time, and just try to hear me out, even if it doesn't work for you. So this is called Nobody Knows Nuance Nowadays. I should like to start by stating that the title of this piece is not absolutely true. Of course, some understand the subtle shades of nuance. I have not yet become such a megalomaniac to think I am the only voice of reason. But the depressing repetition of social media and my own isolation may one day push me to such mad hubris. If you get the rare chance to speak with someone individually, they are probably not so terribly unreasonable. But the sad truth is, people would rather fit in than be sensible. In these 2020s, after climate crisis, war, and starvation, I see conformity and one way or the other opposition as particularly disturbing markers of our age. Conformity has always plagued the human race and is necessary for it to function. How should things happen if we don't fit in? Agree or cooperate by both community and international standards. But If those standards are never questioned and challenged, life on earth will never improve, and the suffering of most of humanity shall never cease. Oh, you can oppose, but you must do so in only one way. Positions that are quite similar are made into opposites, and it is all or nothing for whatever supposedly different camp you occupy. If you are left-wing or right-wing, you must be so entirely, and toe the party line without consulting your conscience. Well, here now, I proudly proclaim, I am a man without wings, and will follow the scent of the truth as far as my nose will allow. Here I'm getting into trouble. Remember how certain everyone was about COVID? A phenomenon the Western world had not seen since 1918. Some were sure it would kill us all. Others still fancy the pandemic a total conspiracy. Whether natural or manufactured, it killed millions. It is just not possible that every single one of those poor nurses was lying through the teeth. Some may have had pre-existing poor health, but otherwise well people dropped dead. Good health did not guarantee survival. The trend seems to be that those with other conditions suffered worse and longer. I said from the start, it likely came from a lab. Why would those Wuhan bats be more infectious in 2019 than they were at any other time in the last 100 years? On January 25th this year, that's 2025, if anybody's ever watching this 8 years down the road, the BBC reported the CIA, though not certain, cites a lab as the most likely cause. I do not believe this was nefarious, just that scientists imbued with the full capacity of human error were careless with their work, and the pandemic burst into the world. I believed in the vaccine when I got it. I wasn't sure, but I thought I made the right choice. If I had refused, it would likely have meant the end of my happiest relationship, and I feared my family wouldn't see me. My grandmothers in their late 80s and mid-90s might never see me again. Even though it was 2 years later, my relationship ended anyway. And as of writing, my grandmothers miraculously still live, now both in their 90s. The elders surviving COVID with the rest of us. Though my family and I all had mild cases, I still don't think COVID is anything to sneeze at. Not as unbearable to me as the norovirus, it was a unique illness, much more potent than my seasonal flus. But if I had to do it over, I would have skipped the jab. I'm not a flu shot kind of person. This was especially tricky because it didn't stand up to the testing all shots are required to pass. There wasn't the time. To those who contend that because our best and brightest were working around the clock, it's just as safe as the rest, I'd ask them to consider how we study. Who do you think makes the better grade? Someone who has crammed 14 hours for a test, or someone who has studied 2 hours per day the past week? There might be exceptional crammers, but the one who has been steady will have had time to reflect on their learning and be better rested when it's showtime. I'm no virologist, but there was great debate within the scientific community. Real experts lost their careers for their dissent. Our very own Dr. Strang reversed his position to toe the party line. There are at least billions of dollars made by folks who care most about profit. While COVID was lethal and life-changing for some, I am incredibly uncertain what the vaccine did to mitigate it. The spread was not slowed, and the severity, well, I'm just not sure. It was a step too far to make it tantamount to mandatory, denying healthy, unvaccinated people access to polite society. Though some of the wrong people were involved, absolutely, the right decision was made to welcome the jabless back in public. We must never legislate what people put in their bodies, especially if there's doubt about the safety. Just like the nurses weren't lying, there is no way all those poor folks with heart trouble were either. Now, the other controversial subject here, oh my, there is nothing wrong with being trans, so long as it is limited to gender and not allowed to spill over into race, disability, or God forbid, species. One cannot, thank you. There are those people, or animal people, one cannot paint their face black and say that is who they really are, nor can they be legitimately disabled merely in their own perception. And while you might be a cat as part of a kink, or even horsing around, if you insist upon meowing all the time, you had better do so to a qualified professional who can get you back to speaking. Geez, I almost speaking as quickly as possible. Stating there is nothing wrong with being transgender might seem obvious to some, but the history of discrimination, violence, and murder against those who are a different sex than they were born should be evidence that it cannot be stated enough. There is nothing wrong with being transgender. If gender is not a spectrum for you, then you are part of the majority who feels right in their born sex. There's nothing wrong if you feel comfortable in your own skin. It is, however, a spectrum for many, and they should be loved and encouraged to become who they are without fear of backlash. But I think we must ask trans folk to be patient with well-meaning cis cats. If I get your pronoun wrong, please do not vilify me. I shall do my best to get it right. If some fool insists on calling you something you don't like, then you don't owe them your time. And if they threaten or harm you, I am deeply sorry, and I hope you're able to achieve safety and justice. I ask for your patience because while there have been gender fluid folks since the dawn of time, I don't know if a gender spectrum has been in mainstream consciousness for much more than 10 years. I heard of an old professor who was banned for addressing his crowd as ladies and gentlemen. That phrase has referred to audiences for at least hundreds of years. He meant no harm, and probably wasn't hip to the new phraseology. I argued with a French academic who criticized Simone de Beauvoir for not mentioning trans people in her second sex. Beauvoir said that often girls' first crushes were other girls. The second sex was first published in 1949, and I think that is an incredibly progressive statement for the time. When someone second guesses my disability as multiple sclerosis and not cerebral palsy, I can correct them, but have no cause to anger unless they insist it is still the former after I have properly elucidated the truth. When you lose your mind over misspeaks, you push otherwise decent folk into agreement with the fascists. The fascists say, let's ban people from changing their pronouns because this is too ridiculous. Your identity is anything but ridiculous. It is brilliant and beautiful, but by nitpicking, you lose good people. I don't feel comfortable giving my pronouns. I've said before that the human race is going so far down the toilet, I would rather identify as the toilet than a member of the human race. So if anyone asks me, my pronouns are it, that, shit. But however you want to be identified is up to you. And anyone who tries to prevent you from being yourself is in serious violation of your human rights. This next part here, I'm just kind of elucidating the questions around the area. So if a child tells you they are not their born identity, then let them wear the clothes and play with the toys they prefer. But when it comes to surgeries and hormones, the solution might not be so easy, because these things may be irreversible and cause harm. At what age is a child able to consent to these changes? If they wait till adulthood, will the change be as comprehensive? We don't allow people to vote until they turn 18, but surely some dominion over one's own body begins in early childhood. If parents don't approve, what right does a child have over their own person? Are operations and medications guaranteed not to cause serious long-term poor health? If these questions are not easily answerable, then we must ask them in every case. In loneliness, I have thought on occasion about becoming a beautiful woman only to fall in love with myself, so that I could become a completely self-satisfied, autoerotic individual without the need for amorous companionship. But I don't really think it works that way. After 10 surgeries, I will never have another unless it is absolutely necessary or 100% guaranteed to improve my quality of life. What about disclosure? I don't think it's necessary in anything but romance and competitive sports. I may be old-fashioned, but I think even before the first kiss, you should let someone know you're trans, because that very much informs consent. I might not disclose my disability on a dating site, but if I am to meet someone, they have got to know, because visible cerebral palsy is not what they will be expecting. Even though it is probably a deal breaker, that has nearly killed me too many times to count. One has to face reality, no matter how unpleasant. Can we close that window real quick? There's noise coming out. Just the cracks here. There. Yeah, thanks. We're almost done here. Manon Ryu played briefly in the NHL, and this broke the gender barrier in men's professional hockey. Even though it was only for a cup of coffee, it was a monumental thing. Though sexism has kept women from playing men's sports, it is not the only factor at play. It is not ableism that I can't play for the Toronto Blue Jays. My body simply does not work well enough. Ableism would rear its head if I had done my due diligence, became the best qualified person, and was not allowed to coach the team. It has reared its disgusting head over nearly every important aspect of my life. But if you break the gender barrier in the other direction, that is at best unfair. Imagine if Michael Jordan decided at the height of his career that he was Michelle, joined the WNBA and scored hundreds of points per game. This is not fair to women. I'm not saying trans women aren't women, but I am saying no one can rightly disregard the physical advantage they possess from their born identity. Of course, this physical advantage does not apply in chess or pool or bowling or many other things that my idle brain can't think of right now. This is why we must look at everything individually without dogma. Imagine if Bruce or Kylie Jenner, at the height of their ability, sprained their ankle and was allowed to compete in the Paralympics. This would not be fair to someone like me. A trans man in the NHL is just fine if they can compete. But this does not cut the other way. I wonder if anyone has considered trans sports as a viable option, given that disabled sports are an absolute necessity. I wholeheartedly support a trans president as a prime minister, so long as their policies were sound and they improve the lives of those of us who struggle. We can't allow the wealthy to continue to accrue more power. This dangerous trend will one day stop any of us from even discussing the matter. Our existence as a species is in great peril. This is the final thought on this. Beware of anything or anyone who discourages you from thinking for yourself. Understand that if we insist on being too silly with language, we will lose a good many people to fascism. Partly because they speak in more understandable terms, and also because very few have the courage to truly stand on their own. I wish more people would stand on their own, because then we'd have true diversity without the soul-killing herd instinct. Resist at all costs the urge to violence, except in direct self-defense. Respect everyone's right to exist, especially when they appear different from you. Be generous with your money if you have some to spare. Most people do not have enough. In this sophisticated cyber age, how can we allow anyone to starve, much less the vast majority of people? What does the best version of yourself look like? No one is perfect, but have the courage to exercise the dedication to become who you always wanted to be. It's not about what you have, it's about who you are. Don't take my word for it. Think very carefully and act with love in your heart. Now get a defibrillator for me now. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Great job.
Yeah. Oh, now we can relax. Thanks for getting that on.
Good. Gonna sign off. You want to say goodbye?
Oh, thank you everybody for tuning in online. I really appreciate you. Send that ton bucks to nightowls@gmail.com, and my kids will leak tomorrow.
My kids.